If you choose to work with your family, one day, you won't. It's going to be over one day. Your exit, no matter how hard you work at it, is going to be unpredictable, and it's going to carry an emotional impact.
Leaving is not the opposite of loyalty. Sometimes the most loyal thing that you could do is make space for the next chapter, whether that means you're leaving, but also for the people who are staying.
Hey there, and welcome to Your Next Gen Friend, a Successors Guide to Business Transition, a podcast for figuring out what's next in or beyond your family business. I'm Andrea Carpenter, transition strategist and second gen. Around here, we talk about the real stuff: family dynamics, identity, leadership, wealth, and how to define success on your own terms. Here's to finding your own way forward. I'm so glad you're here.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Your Next Gen Friend. Today, super excited to be back with Adam, and we're just going to go into the meat of it. Big questions I hear from successors all the time. Should I stay? Should I go? What does that look like? If you're interested in hearing how did Adam get into his family business? What was it like growing and scaling it? If that is more of where you are at, Adam did some really cool things working inside his family business. So check out part 1, which we will link in the show notes. But I just encourage you, especially if you're sitting in a family business wondering what your place is there a role for you? And you're having questions around that. Obviously, as next gens, you have as much a right to be happy and fulfilled and excited about your life as any other person. And so Adam has done some really cool things. He's helping lots of families now navigate through these decisions around it. So again, Adam and I were talking right before we hit the record button. Let's just normalize that sometimes people stay in family business and sometimes the right decision for you is to leave. So I'm just going to jump us right into that and thinking about the exit. I know, Adam, in part 1, we were sort of talking about scaling and getting to this point. Did you feel like there had to be something that was true about the business or your role in it for you to be able to leave?
It is so fun to be back. Before I answer, and for anyone who's nervous about talking about this idea of exiting family companies, I'm not ducking Andrea's question, okay? But I wanted to say, thank you so much for having me back. How fun is this? And I'm not supposed to do this as a guest, but may I correct you as a host?
Sure.
All right. So in leading in, and hey, Adam Hatcher, 13 years in my own family's company, scaling a regional company to a national one, working with 3 generations: grandfather, father, brother, step uncle, cousin, and now doing family business consulting. You said if you're thinking about maybe like the possibility of exit one day. Okay, I want to freeze right there, and then we'll get to your question. I have had the privilege. So my family's company is 1973, 53 years old as of this recording. 3 generations. I was there for 13 years. I have had the privilege during that time of studying a lot of family businesses. When you work with one, you get to meet a lot of people, and we all tell each other inside stories. All of us had a crazy grandfather. It's the whole thing. And through all the family companies I've met, now doing family business consulting, through the families I have worked with, through the research I have done, through the academics I have met who are all brilliant and have decades and centuries of family consulting, here's something I've learned, okay? If you choose, this is 100% true across every family company, if you choose to work with your family, one day you won't. It's going to be over one day. And so I love that we're talking about exiting family companies because it's the inevitable thing. Like, we all have different jobs, compensation, responsibilities, successes, failures, setbacks, but it is absolutely inevitable that everyone listening to this podcast who works with their family is considering hiring family or is considering joining the company. One day, all of you aren't going to work there, even if the company continues. So this is inevitable for us. And why I love that we're talking about it, something I learned going through it myself and something in working with other families as well, is this is unlike any other job you're going to have. I think it was 10 or 11 jobs for free pay or credit before my family's company, before I worked there. Your exit, no matter how hard you work at it, is going to be unpredictable, and it's going to carry an emotional impact. And if you want to, we can lean into those when the time is right.
I just want to surface in that, because sometimes the path there is a very valid path. Obviously, Adam decided to step out of the business earlier, but there is a valid path. I'm the successor, I'm the CEO, and now I'm going to take over. And so in that situation, you can also think of this as, okay, if you're taking over, someone else is stepping out, and what is it like for them to go? And I think it's a really healthy mindset. Like, nothing is permanent. We are not entitled to any of this for a long time. At some point, we will move beyond the business. Elizabeth and I always joke, you're going to exit vertically or horizontally.
No. Vertically, or you're not going to, or someone's going to force you out. One of the kindest, most successful CEOs I've gotten a chance to sit down with had a thoughtful succession process. He did not an event, a process. Andrew, he used a consultant. He had an independent board. And you know what happened when they found the next generation was ready? They kicked him out.
Yep.
They said, everything we've evaluated, you will steamroll the next generation. The very things that made you successful will be a kryptonite to you in being in the shadow. And he found himself out. And what the next generation had to learn was they watched the founder completely disoriented for 12 months.
It is so hard. Just anyone who's going through this type of transition, the things that the current owner, or oftentimes that's your parents, the things that they are going through as they try to disentangle themselves to make space for you is also a huge piece of the puzzle, but not really what we're here to talk about today. I just wanted to bring Adam, when you said that, like, it's not permanent, someday you're not going to, I think that's a very healthy mindset as you walk in, as to, like, this is a step on my journey, but it's taking me to the ultimate, the bigger goals of what I want to accomplish in life and what that means for my family, and what that means for the things I'm able to accomplish, or the people I'm able to impact, or the positive things I can do for the world. So
yeah. And so then, to your question, I promised I wasn't going to take us all the way left without coming back right. With that idea that it's not inevitable, and it's such a healthy place for us to start. If you work with your family, working there shouldn't have been inevitable. That's what you and I talked about in the first podcast. Mm-hmm. How do families make it a process to join versus chief waiting for mom to retire officer? Mm-hmm. That was episode 1. But then here, it is also, because it is not inevitable that you will leave, it is a deeply healthy perspective that can help with your identity and other stuff. So what did that mean for me? So let's talk about that, and then we'll talk about some concepts around it. Yeah. So I was in my family's company for 13 years. I started as the general counsel, which is a mistake. If you ever start in your family's company, don't let them put the word general in your title, because then you will just end up doing everything else. So I was general counsel, and then became corporate strategy lead with a board member, then stepped into head of corporate strategy, and then added to that vice president of human resources. So for my last 7 or so years there, it was all 3 of those roles combined. But what was interesting, and this was something I shared with the leadership when my father and I announced my exit, is that he and I always kept a dialogue going about what the future of my career was. He would openly say to me in my annual reviews, I want you to feel free to think outside this company. And that came from his personal experience. My dad graduated from the University of Georgia on Friday. He went to work in the family company on Monday. And as he said it to me, the only person who ever promoted me was my father. And sometimes I had to buy my promotion. So he wanted me, and I have 2 siblings. He always wanted us to know that we had value outside the company. That's that hiring part, putting people through a process. But then we kept that alive throughout. And we never shared that with anyone because it probably could panic people. Like, what? They're always talking about him leaving. But that, Andrea, was one thing that was helpful. The second thing that was helpful in helping me realize a new step in my career was that we had, golly, what's it been now? It's probably been 20 years of family meetings. So if you've never had one of these, I was working with a family recently, and our sit down together was the first time all the people who worked in and owned the company, who were family members, had ever sat in a room and talked about the fact that they worked in and owned the company together. And the company had been around for over 25 years. And that's normal for a lot of us. It's an odd, we figure we see you on Sunday after church. I see you in meetings. Like, what's a family meeting? But these are just quickly when you sit down, the family members who work in the business, who own the business, and sometimes the family members around that group too, the ones impacted, sit down and work on the unique dynamic in how you work in and own the business. So I've got about 20 years of those, not just with what I do with other families, myself. That, I didn't know when we started those meetings that meeting was where seeing a new step in my career was going to start. But I am so, if you haven't had one of those, I deeply encourage them. It's what I facilitate for families, because I can't imagine that conversation having happened in an executive meeting, in my annual review with my dad, like in a one-off, my brother and I play golf together, like just walking up the 10th fairway with my brother. That's not the place for that, nor did it create the space for it. So the root for me, one, was that the dialogue was always open to think outside of it, but then there were family meetings.
Yeah. And I think meetings and open communication and place for everyone to talk is important. There's likely people listening, maybe they don't have that structure currently. There's no, like, I want to talk about the future, whether that's staying, whether that's going, just there are no meetings like to bring things up. So what advice would you give to someone who maybe is in a position where they're trying to open communication more as a family? Where would you tell them to start?
All right, where do they work in the business? Do they have the controlling shares? Like, do they control the business from an ownership perspective, or are they the next gen?
They
don't.
The next gen. Yeah, next gen who might be listening here. They want to initiate conversations about the future, but that current controlling generation, it is maybe not. It sounds like your dad had a lot of awareness. Being the second generation already, he felt some of those things, but many successors who are the second generation, they're coming in from that founding generation, which sometimes is a very different dynamic of, well, I built this thing, I worked really hard, I don't want my kids to be entitled. So how do you start if you're thinking like, hey, this might actually be a family company, whether I'm going to stay or whether I'm going to go, but we should talk about it. What advice would you give?
All right, so it's interesting, like some of the things you talked about for those of us that have a controlling interest in the company. I'm going to touch that even though you told me not to, okay? And then we'll go back. When I meet families that are needing help, that want to start having conversations and want someone there, as someone said recently, they act better when you're here. We use facilitators as well. Have used, do use. It helps. It really helps when a family member doesn't have to play that role.
Yep.
When it's the person who has control of the business through ownership, the reason they typically want to talk is because either there was a disaster or a near disaster in the previous generation, going from Gen 1 to Gen 2. Like, they experienced it and they don't ever want to go through that again. Or they see people around them, family companies they know around them, that are starting to go through casualty situations or chaos, and they don't want to do that. Sometimes things seem to be going great, and it's actually the next generation that picks up on it. I remember talking with one family, and there was a lot of anxiety. It was a high-debt business, a lot of anxiety in the next generation about what would happen if there was an emergency situation with the two siblings that owned the company. And so you talk to the next gens, they said, we don't know if we'd all of a sudden all be in debt or what's going to happen. And then you talk to the siblings that own the company, they said, what? We told them 8 years ago. Like, We were at lunch and we told them what happens. What more do they need? It's more than we had. So sometimes the need for the meeting comes, the next generation has a sense, this could be so much better, or there's something I really need help talking about. Because, there's an anxiety to it. So if that is you, this is what I have found helpful. When I sat with a family last week and we had their first meeting. And when we start, Andrea, we say, okay, when you work with your family, you typically want two things. You want to build a great company with a strong family, right? Or a healthy family. A great company with a healthy family. Now, a great company doesn't have to be huge. Okay, we're not all going to be Marriott. We're not all going to be the Waltons. You don't have to be. You can have 1, 2, 3 locations. You can be regional, whatever it is. Whatever financial and community impact you want to have with the business, that's your greatness. But you want to have a great company with a healthy family. Now, you might want to be best friends and see each other every week, or you may just want to enjoy getting together when you do. Whatever your answer is, I love to ask families that up front. Because when they say, yeah, of course, like who says no to that? Who says, no, some people actually. But when you start there, like, so if you're a next gen, hey, I work here because I've dreamed about a great company and a really strong family around it. And we never talk about that. Like, that's not, you never sit in an executive meeting. I did that for a decade. Never sat in an exec meeting and the vice president of operations looked at me and my father and said, how are y'all working together? How are you working with your sister who doesn't work in the business? What do you communicate? Never one time asked that. So I would like a great company, a healthy family, and I'd like to talk about it. Like, that's an easy way to step into it.
Yeah. I like that framing. And it's also, there's nothing threatening. Well, okay, you know your parents, but there's really nothing threatening about, I can see an opportunity for us to talk about how to make our family stronger. That's oftentimes a really big pull. You're talking about, we have this concept of there's your family community and your family business community. Sometimes people are in both. Sometimes people are only in one, but you're talking about what is the integration of these? How do we as a family want that to look at, and what does that look like? I'm curious, Adam, in your work, what percentage of the time are next gens reaching out to you as like the initial point? Because at least for us, I see 50 to 60% of the time it's actually the next generation, because you're the one with the excitement for the future and the energy and the passion. A lot of times, like, I think we can make this better. Let's talk about what this would look like. And so you can empower yourself and you can get help to find the words if you don't know exactly what the words are, but you can start these conversations about what it looks like, because it is going to be super impactful on you and the next generation, whether you're actively in the business or not. So,
yeah, I'm similar.
Yeah.
Half the time I connect with a family, it's the generation that's got ownership control, which is not always, but typically the older generation. That situation flips sometimes. Yep. And then half the time it's the generation without control. But then my goal, when you do, and y'all are the same way, when you work with a family, different than a CPA or a wealth manager for you who's looking out for your best interest. Yep. The goal then is to bring everybody together, and you work on that unique dynamic of how they work in and own the company together.
Yeah.
For the next gens, so if you think, do I need to have a family meeting now? So I took some time, and you and I talked about last time. I reflected on everything I'd ever learned about family companies and wrote a book called The Chaos-Proof Family Business and dedicated a few chapters to leaving. And there were a few questions that I wrote down, and I'll share a few of them because they may be helpful to the listeners. So if you are not in control of the business, I think, or if you are, it doesn't matter. You could be in control, not in control. You could supervise a family member. Those are 3 distinct positions. I think at all times, you need to have a pulse on how you're doing in the company. Because remember, you're on a journey that's going to end at some point. And we were joking earlier, like something's going to force you out if you if you don't do it one day. But if you're a next gen, and I sat with thinking back to a family from 3 months ago, I remember asking the next generation, and you just ask everyone equally, take a minute and think, is there a future at this company that excites you? Like, can you see responsibilities that you can earn, a type of work you can enjoy, the compensation that you need or want for the life you want? Like, take a breath. You're probably working really hard right now. Family companies, we work hard. But is there something 5 years down the road you want? And can this organization provide that to you? I have seen families that sat and said, family members who thought, oh, this is the kind of thing I want to do. And Andrea, the company could not reasonably have grown into that within the next 10 years. In tough situations, you and I probably get a lot of phone calls when things are hard. Can you do your job wholeheartedly? Can you bring your talents, your opinions, your spirit, your personality? Can you be you in the job you have? Which a lot of times when I start working with families, that's something we have to do. We have to, because a lot of us drift into jobs over time. Let's define the role the company needs. And then can you do that wholeheartedly? Because what's interesting in family companies, so I did about 7 years as the head of HR in our family's company and learned that employee engagement a mentor taught me it can be really simple. Like 3 things, okay? Imagine it like if you're watching on YouTube, I've got my fingers in a triangle. 3 things. Do you enjoy your work environment? Are you rewarded and recognized fairly? And do you have a chance to develop? Can you see something you want to develop to, and are you being supported? All right, so let me go back. Do you like your work environment? And that's typically, do you respect your boss and feel respected? And do you like the way everyone behaves at the company? All right. Just because you're working at your family's company does not mean that is true. Just because you report to your uncle does not mean you all work well together. Or you will automatically work well together without being intentional in how you work together. So to go to the second one, rewarded and recognized fairly. Just because you work in your family's company doesn't mean you're receiving market compensation. Or you might be overcompensated, which can have its own baggage that comes with it as well. Just because you work with your family doesn't mean you all recognize each other and compliment and affirm each other for what you do well. And then to that last side, development, just because you work with your family doesn't mean you can clearly see what's next. And doesn't mean that you're being supported in getting there. Working in a family company does not inevitably provide reward and recognition, development, and the work environment that will make a family member want to stay. So when we talk about, can you do your job wholeheartedly? You would think when you go to work with your family, oh, it's just going to be automatic. No, like you have to give it just the same thought, if not more, than another employee in your company.
Yeah, I love that example. And we have a tool called the Objectives Matrix, which we start every single person in the family off with. Like, what do you really want to achieve? And you think about your family first. For you, if you have a spouse or a partner, if you have any children, what are the things that you want to accomplish in life? I love the triangle. But sometimes maybe growth is important to you, but maybe you're at a stage of life you're like, actually, that's not something that is super important to me or that I'm optimizing for right now. And so to be able to put words behind, yeah, that's a deal breaker. I need to be compensated fairly. And that's a deal breaker for me because if I am not compensated fairly, then I'm going to walk away. Or if my siblings are working in the business and they're being compensated the same as me, but they're not working, they're not actually working. They're just getting compensation because they're part of the family and that's how it was set up. That could feel like a deal breaker to you. And any of those things are valid, right? Your impression of what is a deal breaker or what is not doesn't really matter to other people. You just need to have conviction around what are the things that are most important to you? Because then as you start to explore, should I stay? Should I go? How fast is it going to go? What is the timeline going to look like? All of these other pieces that can start to come out as you make decisions on all of that, you can actually make them grounded in, okay, I actually know what are the most important things to me. And so I just wanted to bring in, I think there's some inner work too to do as well before you're just in a family meeting. Like, I'm assuming you put a lot of thought in before you went into the family meeting and said, I think I'm ready to go kind of do this thing. Like you had really thought about what that would look like and what the case would be so that you could come with a compelling case to start a conversation. So maybe, can you take us a little bit to that moment around how you told and what that conversation looked like?
Yeah. What I liked, even hearing the way you asked that, is because we were in family meetings, again, these meetings focused on how we work in and own the company together, it wasn't a surprise topic. Mm-hmm. And it actually evolved over time. It wasn't an acute moment. And so this is something that I like to do with families. Our family consultant did it with us. Before we got to the meeting, he emailed out a prompt and he had us imagine headlines. And he said, it was either 3 or 5. Think 3 to 5 years out. What headlines would you want the local newspaper to be writing about you, about the family, about the company? Mm-hmm. And you were supposed to do it independently. So my siblings, my parents, and you're not supposed to look or send them to anybody ahead of time. And of course, he would talk with us before the meeting. Yeah. And I didn't write "My time is now." Like, that was not one of my headlines. But in doing that, it gave me space to reflect. So I need to tell you a little bit about me. I believe if you work in your family's company, that you need to always be working yourself out of a job. Just like any other company. If your family's company depends on you, that company is as vulnerable as any non-family company. Mm-hmm. That is why succession and development exists. And so, if I'm going to teach that in the company, I had to live it. Mm-hmm. And so over time, Andrea, we were growing the company. I was always working to replace myself with people that were better than me. So that's going on when I have to answer this question. And in answering it, I realized that it was time for me to start letting go of my roles. Mm-hmm. And I wrote that, and as we sat in the meeting, and so that was it. I just said, my time in these roles has ended because there are people ready to take them. Mm-hmm. And the company will be better for that. Now, I didn't think the headline all the way through from there, but what was nice about it and was not threatening and didn't make that scary to say is, one, there were no executives. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a team meeting. That was just us, the family members, the ownership, it was my siblings and my parents. Mm-hmm. And then everyone else did the same thing. So I got to hear what was important to each of them and what they hoped for and imagined. Yeah. So if it sounded like it was some bomb shock in a meeting, it wasn't. It was actually very gradual, and it started with everybody thinking 3 to 5 years out.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think just the space, there's so many different activities and questions and conversation structures. Like, the world is so infinite in how these things might come up, so you can figure out what works best for you, what works best for your family. But I love that it came up in a natural way, that it came up around ambitions, and it was rooted in what was important to you, that you were going to be able to do that, and that was already a value that they knew you had. And so I've heard you say before, when it's time to go, you leave, you don't want to hover. And so how did that just I'll call it unraveling for lack of a better term until we hear your story, but what did it look like to actually say, okay, Adam is no longer employed at the family business, and now Adam is working on his new book. Adam is working on 21 Clear. He's going to go do his own consulting. Like, just talk a little bit about what that journey looked like for you.
No one told me this. So for you listening, everyone listening, if you're working with your family, remember, you're not going to one day. So, or you're about to watch someone, the story we told earlier, the person who's bored and consultant kicked him out. You're going to watch someone go through this, or you're going to go through it one day too. If you're listening in a podcast, you can't see my fingers. If you're on YouTube, I've split them out, put 2 fingers up and kind of split them out. I'm creating a line, a continuum. And this is the emotional impact of an ending. If you think about it from an employment perspective, if we go to the left side of the line, that's normal leaving a job stuff, right? So it is a loss. But a lot of times people will leave jobs for another job. And sure, maybe you really liked your old coworkers, but you have a better opportunity, or relocation. The emotional impact of a job loss is varied. It depends on the circumstance, the tenure, what you gave up, what happened, the condition you're in when you leave. But that's on the left side. And as you get to the middle, things are getting more intense or more emotional, a deeper emotional impact. And then once we cross the midpoint, we're moving into family loss. And if you get to the far right side, it's more intense. That's the impact of death, divorce, estrangement. Like those, and then as we go back from the edge toward the middle, there are smaller things, like when someone moves away, relocation. It's the different emotional impacts of these events. When you work with your family, something no one told me is the emotional impact is not going to be like any other job you've ever left, even in the best of circumstances. Because when your name is on the company, or your family's name, or your in-laws' name is on the company, depending on how much you identified, how long you were there, what you did, what you gave up, the mistakes you made, the accomplishments you had, how much your identity is wrapped up in it, the circumstances of your exit, all of that creates an emotional impact that is in addition to the impact of leaving a normal job. When you work, you and I talked about this last time, when you work with your family, what you've done, you've taken the conditional nature of work and employment, and you've mixed it with the unconditional nature of family. And your exit's going to bring that up. No one told me that before I left, and I wish somebody had. It's even when I love what I'm doing now, even when you are walking on to something you're excited about, there is going to be a sense of loss. I remember the last time as an employee, I walked down the stairs to the company. Now I've been back to the building, but there was a finality because I always walk the steps. Because Andrea, my granddad, walked those steps too. The other 8, 9, 10 jobs I left, I didn't literally follow my grandfather's footsteps on the way out on my last day. It's also difficult, no matter how hard you work at it, for any of us that work with our family, your identity is going to get tied up in the business. You can work so hard, and you should, at differentiating yourself from the company. But there's a part where every mistake you make feels personal. And when you leave, your chance to undo those is over. You're gone. The accomplishments you were about to achieve, I remember there were a couple of things where I went, oh, golly, I dreamed about those for 5 years, and we're finally there, and the team that's succeeding me is going to be the ones that are going to get to do it. And what was important to me was stepping away. Some family members will hover. They'll keep coming back around. I do believe, because when our company is at 53 years now, it was at 50 when I stepped away. My brother, my father, my successors, everyone needed a chance to be themselves and to figure out what it's like with me gone. In the same way we figured it out, what was it like with my grandfather gone? If you're about to see somebody leave and you're going to be left in the business, know that you're going to go through a relational reset. Whoever's leaving, as long as they really leave and they don't keep hovering,
Yeah.
you're going to have to figure out what you're going to talk about and when you're going to see each other. If your cousin was the peacemaker and she leaves, well, you and the rest of the family members just lost the peacemaker. Mm-hmm. And probably no one pointed that out. You're going to have to go through this relationship reset as you continue to work.
Yeah.
So it carries an emotional impact. And I would recommend, now, someone would say, Adam, you don't answer phone calls? Yes. Like there's still things someone will call and ask for help with something. And I'm still engaged when someone needs me. Mm. But in general, when you leave, there's an emotional impact with it. And there's this part where you have to pull apart an identity.
Mm-hmm. But also this excitement about the future and maybe what is possible for you. And is there anything you want to add on that?
Which part?
Just, I think most people, we always say it's a journey, not an event. And so it's easy to think of leaving, especially when you say, let's not, I don't want to hang around, or we do need to like have that moment of like, okay, like there's a break here. Something has changed. Something is different now. It can feel like an event, but rather the emotional impacts of leaving likely stayed with you and are probably still with you to this day as you think about moving forward. And so we always say it's a journey, not an event to really go through a change like this, but also journeys and next adventures often have very exciting, positive things that come with them. And so you've been able to do a couple cool things. And before we wrap up, I know we're getting close to our time. I wanted to give a little space for the cool and exciting things that have been the next step in your journey and what that's felt like for you.
Thank you. And I'm glad you asked, because I realized I leaned in on the loss part and didn't lean in on the hope part. But why I wanted to start there is because if you don't recognize that, you're just going to carry this cloud with you. I promise. Mm-hmm. Like an ungrieved loss, no matter what the shape of it is.
Yeah. Or you might make a decision like, ooh, that seems too painful. I shouldn't even go there, right? Because I know I'm going to feel loss.
Yeah.
I won't feel loss if I don't leave, even if every other circumstance means you probably should leave and it might be your time. So I think it's good to talk about that and the loss that you're feeling. Also recognizing if you are choosing to stay, but someone else is leaving, that they are going through loss in some capacity. I think that's a huge piece of this project, but there's also a lot of possibility that comes with that. And I'd love to just kind of close on a positive note of that positivity and excitement around personal journeys.
Yes. When part of the reason I would encourage anyone when you leave to create space. I have seen family members leave, fail to create space, or like the Godfather line, they keep bringing me back. And it's hard to lean into what's next. And so here's what the family meeting, that my exit wasn't an event, but it was a process that had time and space and advice and coaches and resources. Mm-hmm. There was a moment, we quadrupled the company in my time there. We went from regional to coast. And it was about, I was going to say 6 or 7 years, and I felt my teenagers rolling their eyes at me. But it was somewhere in that range in my tenure. So about a little more than halfway through my tenure in the company. And I remember I was sitting with my dad in a pretty candid moment one day, and I went, that was really hard. We had taken on a lot of debt in acquisitions. Scaling anything is hard. Scaling your family company is hard. We'd lost my grandfather. The business had been through a lot. The family, the ownership, everybody had been through a lot. And I remember we were sitting there, and I said, I wonder what it would be one day to work with other families who want to get their company somewhere and stay together. Like, not that we have all the answers, but to lean in with people who are committed to working on that together. Andrea, if it hadn't been for the space created by our family meetings, I love what I'm doing now. I probably never would have written the book I wrote. I wouldn't have met the people I met. I wouldn't be working with the families I'm working with. And I wouldn't have gotten here for probably 20 more years. Mm-hmm. And there was a book called Life Forward, not Living Forward. That's a different book, but Life Forward that a coach of mine recommended to me. And it was in doing some exercises in that book, once I realized I was going to step to something else, that it brought this conversation back with my dad. And I actually pulled a note up on my iPhone, and I just wanted to jot a couple ideas down. I was like, okay, what did I ever learn about a family business? Like, let me write down everything I learned. And Andrea, it turned into a 55,000 word book. Oh my gosh, I guess I knew a couple things. And what's fun about, I went through a period of being sad because I loved it and knew there was something next. But it gave me a time in my 40s to start to lean in to what's next with the energy and the insight to do it. And it took that space. So I had to go through the decision. I had to grieve that things looked differently than I expected, and then had the space and the energy after that to launch what I'm doing now. And so it is now. You had asked me before the call. You said, Adam, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And you said, one of them is, what have you chosen? Oh, no. One of them, hang on. I had your questions here. What are you the first in your family to do? But you said you were only going to give me one word, so I have to cheat. Okay? You ready? Mm-hmm. So I'm the first one not to be a consultant, because our family's business is a services business. And really all services businesses, doctors, staff, we're all consulting. But I'm the first family business consultant, the first one to lean into the experience of working in and owning the company, and then want to lean into it with others to help them. Mm-hmm. I'm the first one in the family to take everything we've learned for 53 years and take that heart, and then to go take the heart of making people's lives better and do it through family business consulting.
Awesome. Well, this has been such a fun conversation, and I am so sad we're already running out of time again. So probably someday there'll be a part 3 on just the cool things that you're doing with families and concepts and frameworks from your book, which is awesome. I think something I heard from you was leaving is not the opposite of loyalty. Sometimes the most loyal thing that you could do is make space for the next chapter, whether that means you're leaving, but also for the people who are staying, whether they're family or not, and what's best for the business and also for you and your family and the future and what that looks like. And I love that we were touching on the emotional journey of the leave or the stay, because the questions are good, and really the space. So Adam, any other closing thoughts for us today?
With that intentionality, I want to encourage you. If you are purposeful for when you stay, I promise you it will make it more fun to work there than whatever it is. Even if it's great right now, it will make it better. Yeah. This is how you fight feeling trapped. This is how you fight entitlement. It's how you push those two aside and say, I'm choosing to be here, and this is why. And then that makes it fun. And when you do it in a family meeting, you get to look each other in the eyes and say, good job. Now go get them.
Yeah. I love that. Mic drop moment. Awesome. I think we're going to end it there. Thanks for being here, Adam. And we'll catch you next time on Your Next Gen Friend.
That's it for today. I hope today's episode offered some clarity or at least a little company. If this resonated, I'd be so grateful if you'd share it with another Next Gen. While my podcast is for the Successors, you can also check out its sister show, The Business Transition Roadmap, hosted by my business partner, Elizabeth Ledoux. There's lots of great material in business and family succession over there. I hope you'll take a listen. Be well, and see you next time.